Welcome to my review of AEW Double or Nothing 2024. But before I start, like the video, subscribe, but who cares? So apparently the company's dying, there are no storylines, the matches are bad, blah 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 negative grifter bullshit. AEW just had one of their best pay-per-views in quite a long time. I think I say that during every pay-per-view, but maybe not a Dynasty. That's where they kind of slowed down. But yeah, this was a kick-ass show that's sort of like a parabola. So yeah, great start. The middle is kind of meh. And then it goes up in quality by the end, like by so much. So yeah, first off, we have Will Ospreay versus Roderick Strong. So the show starts off strong, pun intended, with the international title on the line. Alright, so I don't think this should have opened the show. I think trios matches should all of the time, especially with what we had later. I think you should spread out all of the good matches throughout the show. But despite that, and despite this show being like 4 hours long, the fans were there by the end and then enjoyed the anarchy in the arena. But yeah, as for this one, I like the start of this match. I like that the babyface attacks the heel during the entrance and not like on the ramp. Will attacks Roddy in the ring, like as they do their pose. I like unique starts to matches. And I also like the babyface evening up the odds at the start of the match. Like what happened here with Taven and Bennett, but I don't like the managers interfering for the whole match. Like thankfully they were sent off by the middle. But I don't like them meddling too much, especially like them getting their hands on the babyface. I think managers should only like distract and stuff. Because if Taven and Bennett didn't meddle like after this initial encounter, the most controversial spot might not have happened. And how the hell do you like distract the referee enough to like have him not notice this? Taven was running in the ring and then jumped short. Yeah, this happened in a Ring of Honor show once, I think, with Taven. He's not the best, but he's also not the worst. Very charismatic guy, though. Yeah, this felt like a handicap match at the start, and I don't like it. But what I do like, though, is Wardlow's interference, which didn't result in Ospreay getting powerbombed. Because, of course, Wardlow's huge, Ospreay's getting powerbombed, and, of course, Bryce Remsburg will eventually find them out. Like he will eventually see Wardlow. Like there's no reason you'll miss it. And Wardlow takes it like a sport, makes a funny face and then leaves. And that's what eventually gets them ejected. So maybe that kind of contributed to that whole thing. But the match after the Undisputed Kingdom gets sent out is I think what the match should have been like from the start. It's like a clash of styles. It's kind of like D&D where they each have their own specialties. Strong is technical and then purposeful in his moves. And then Ospreay is the high-speed, high-flyer guy. Whenever the match goes fast, Ospreay gains advantage. Whenever the match slows down and technical, Roddy dominates. I like that kind of in-ring storytelling where the dudes have something they're good at and they don't get overcome when having to do that thing. And then the climax is just insane, leading up to one of the best finishes I've seen, but we'll get to that after the top spots of the match. So honorable mention is Roderick Strong's running elbows. It's fun to look at. I also like it when Roderick does combos with this. It's a fun spot. Next is the superplex to the backbreaker by Roddy. Number 2 is the storytelling moment where Ospreay gets told to do a tiger driver but doesn't do it. He doesn't betray what he believes and ends up winning the match with the top 1 spot of the match, where Roddy is in the middle of doing the End of Heartache on Will, but he lands on his feet, Hidden Blade, Stormbreaker for the win. So my score for this is pay-per-view undercard. It was that good. Despite the interferences at the start, it picked up by the end, and Ospreay and Strong are just amazing wrestlers. So yeah, I enjoyed this so much. Next segment. So after this is MJF's return, and this is the most ham-fisted return segments of all time because Adam Cole just like went in out of nowhere. Like he wasn't even in the program for maybe the whole pay-per-view cycle. He just went in and started ranting about stuff. It was a whole lot of nothing, honestly. He was just there as a platform for MJF's return. I mean, I think this would have been better if Cole started participating in the storylines. Maybe the Undisputed Kingdom starts terrorizing people. He starts making declarative promos, and then we have MJF boom coming in and then taking them all out. But yeah, I mean, MJF's actual segment kind of made up for how much this doesn't make sense. Yeah, like maybe it would have been better if Undisputed Kingdom suddenly attacks Will Ospreay and then MJF goes in for the save, maybe buries Will Ospreay, and then starts his promo. But yeah, like I said, the actual return itself was awesome. Like, this was one of the best returns I've ever seen because we get this, like, first-person perspective in a house that reminds me of PT into a trophy room where there are a lot of Easter eggs of MJF's past. First, we see the Dynamite Diamond Ring, the chip that MJF stole at All Out 2022. We have the oxygen tank that he used against Danielson. We have the dog collar used against CM Punk. We also have this stuff on the top shelf that I don't remember. Stuff from the Cody feud, the like singing segment he had with Jericho, and then the key of Long Island. Like, why don't more companies do this? Like, talk about storytelling infused with nostalgia, and it's only been a couple of years. I like this so much. It's very star treatment to have someone kind of be like a main character of AEW. Like, if you needed more proof that MJF is the main character of the company, like this right here, this like treatment where you have all of his relics, that's it. And as for the actual MJF return, dude comes in a Triple H leather jacket, denim jacket combo. It's this outfit right here from his return. He comes back a changed man, a lot wiser, and with very, very anti-hero vibes. Like, there is no way that the fans will ever boo this man again. He'll be the sort of our asshole kind of guy. Because there's no way he's going to be like the gullible babyface as he was with Adam Cole. That's kind of like regression. There's also no way that he's going to be this first version MJF where he just says some cheap lines and then gets some heat from the crowd. There needs to be character development there. There needs to be progress. So I'm expecting a sort of mix between the two. I think he's going to totally go up against heels most of the time. And then when he goes up against the babyfaces, they're going to try to have him not bury the guy. Or if he actually joins Team AEW, it's going to be a sort of don't get in my way sort of situation. As for the promo, let's have this short, special lines of the promo segment. It's kind of like spots in the match, but these are the top lines from this thing that summarize everything. So yeah, number 3 best line that he had here is the one about no more ha-has, no more friendships, no more kangaroo kicks, no more bullshit. Just hate, 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 like that part of the promo. Number 2 is how he explained his contract status, and he shows this okay looking tattoo. Like, it's not bad. Like, the Cody one's worse. At least this you can cover it up. It's just a bit cheesy. And then line number 1, of course, unlike Adam Cole and all of those schmucks in the back, I don't need a New Japan. I don't need a Vince McMahon to make MJF because MJF made MJF. And what makes this more meaningful is that Adam Cole needed both a New Japan and a Vince McMahon. But does MLW count though? Maybe not. It's too small of a promotion to like raise someone up like a New Japan or a WWE can. It's basically an indie. So yeah, for now, going forward, either MJF wins the gauntlet match, or maybe he becomes part of Team AEW. I'm also interested in how he treats Tony Khan, if it's as dismissive as it was before, or since he signed long-term, he's gonna suck his dick, basically. Or he's gonna be his, like, main boy. But what's obvious is that MJF's gonna bury the shit out of the Elite, but hopefully not too much. I don't think he goes for Swerve right away. If MJF goes after Swerve, MJF's gonna win it. So yeah, maybe keep them apart for now. What I would like is him destroying the Undisputed Kingdom along with like other people. But that doesn't look like the case because Cole's still injured. So maybe he's just gonna join Team AEW. After that, Cole's probably gonna be healed and then he's gonna go after Cole. But yeah, great return. Let's get to the next match. So the next match is the Bang Bang Gang, Bullet Club Gold, against the Death Triangle, Pac, Penta El Zero Miedo, and Rey Fenix. So this match is pretty low on the hype meter since the feud was basically like a rushed build job. We also had Who Wrote This Shit. And yeah, this feud is like really an opener feud. It should not have been second match of the card. They just made fun of Pac and now they're fighting. But the match I think delivered, but I don't like how they treat the Ass Boys. I don't like that basically the Ass Boys are just there to tire out Death Triangle. Like they just eat damage and eat damage while Jay White does the actual damage for their team. It's like he's a DPS and they're two supports, while Death Triangle are all killers. Like if you want the Ass Boys to be this like essential key part of the tag division, guys who you could just give the titles to and then the tag division will be okay, you should have them get more offense off and be less pathetic than this. They did nothing. They were beaten up the whole time. Jay carried them on his back. It was a fun, fast match, but it could have been on a Dynamite if it wasn't going to be like a lot more evenly matched or dramatic than it was. Like what made this match honestly is Juice Robinson's return, and I think he did a lot more to win the match for them than the Ass Boys did. Honestly, I think Juice should be like the third man in the trios. Like Jay should be a singles guy. Or better, he could go for mid-card titles. So for the top two spots of the match, I like Colton's flying forearm. Like this is the most awesome part of the match because it's so unexpected. It's such like a cartoonish move and then Colton does it. And then the number one spot of the match is this combo by the Lucha Brothers leading to a rebound kick that actually makes sense. It's well timed. Fenix has enough time to bounce off the ropes, cock up, and then kick one of the Ass Boys that I forgot who, leading to this sort of sidewalk air raid siren slam by Penta. So yeah, this match was alright. It was TV undercard pay-per-view opener for me. I love that Juice is back. He's going to be awesome in the non-wrestling segments, but I don't know what his role is going to be aside from like a Dolph Ziggler sort of guy. Unless you like either build him more seriously as a singles competitor or maybe the main guy in the trios, which judging by how the Ass Boys are booked, he's going to look strong. And it might actually elevate him. So yeah. And then after this is the Toni Storm versus Serena Deeb match. And talk about absolutely negative hype after Serena Deeb's terrible promos. And like all the audio hiccups. Like the first Dynamite, I think, like had them mute Serena Deeb's promo, which actually ruined the moment. What are you doing, guys? It's like you're like actively trying to sabotage Serena Deeb, who's like a great wrestler, as she proves here. And you know what? Like aside from that, she wasn't even the main opponent or like the final boss to go up against Toni Storm because Toni had to go up against the Outcasts who are not associated with Deeb at all. Like what the hell was the build for this feud? It was so poor and so bad. Like I know you don't have any confidence in Deeb's promo skills, but there are ways to get around that. You need to like get in controlled situations, pre-recorded segments, so that you'll have people to care about her matches that are so good. Like this is the sort of women's match that you should be having. Like at this point, Britt Baker can't do one of these unless given a good partner. Deeb can do this with anyone. So can Toni. That's why they're here. But yeah, for this match, again, it's like the first match. They each have something they're good at. They have their strategies. Toni tries to knock Serena out with her strikes and her ass, while Deeb pins Toni down with her submissions. There is not much noticeable selling in the limbs as compared to the Ospreay match. I think that's what's missing here. Like just the obvious zoom in camera moment selling that Will Ospreay does in his match against Roddy should have happened here with Tony. But all in all, this was awesome. I like the holds and I like the facial selling as compared to the limb ones. Like, these guys looked like they were gonna die, being put in like a single leg crab as well as a Texas cloverleaf. So top spots of the match, we have number 3, the octopus stretch to the biting rope break. Number 2 is the hip attack roll up to Serenity Lock. And then going on to the finish, we have like a sort of storyline moment where Mariah May tries to throw in the towel because it's what Tony did in her match against Deeb. Gives it to Luther. Luther gets blamed instead. Tony throws the towel to all of the quote-unquote fans in the arena. And then we head to the finishing sequence. Honorable mention, the Deeb talks on the apron. And then as for the top 1 spot of the match, it is the finish with the Avalanche Storm Zero. This was insane and dangerous and I like it. So yeah, this match on the other hand, I think... Is it better than the first though? I think it's so good. It's pay-per-view undercard as well. And it's like equal with the first because it didn't have the stupid interferences. Yes, a women's match beat out an Ospreay match. And that's not the last time that's gonna happen. Alright, so after that is the Orange Cassidy versus Trent Beretta match, and this one had all of the drama and the story to back it up, to hype it up, but the booking kind of fails it because they didn't make Trent a legit threat. Yeah, he retired Chuck Taylor, but he already lost to Orange after that. He won that tag team match, but Roddy's the one who got the pin. Trent could have used some more matches on a Collision or on a Dynamite. But the match itself, in a vacuum, was actually pretty good. It was more of a fight, they told a story. I believe it was well structured enough. You had increasingly more dangerous spots that build up to a cool climax, and then there were no interferences, unlike other matches to come. The problem with this is just the finish. It's another flash pin, and then you could have given Trent the win instead. Like, if your goal was to jumpstart his singles career after so many years of putting it off, having Trent win this one would have been the move. But yeah, Orange just won again. Orange wins, lol. And they set up this contract signing with Orange on Dynamite. When is it? Tomorrow? And if they swerve us with Trent actually signing, that would make no sense because Orange won all of his matches. So as for the top spots of the match, number 3 is the eye gouging spot by Trent. Number 2 is the Gotch style pile driver on the apron. And number 1 is the sort of fake hugging. They do the spot where the best friends hug, but only one side is doing it, either Trent or Orange does. This was really good. So the score for this is TV main event, pay-per-view opener. This match was alright, but it needed a better ending, a better result, and maybe something more special, especially following up 2 of the best matches in the card. I love the fact that there were no interferences. That was very overdone for the rest of the show. But yeah, this match was alright. I think having this open would have given it a better reaction. And then you could use the Ospreay versus Strong match right here to bring back the crowd. So yeah, this match so far was the worst of the show. But it's not bad. But what's actually bad is the next match. And it's the FTW Triple Threat. So you all know my thoughts about Hook and the FTW title. I think not winning the FTW title is a better reward than winning it. I feel happy that Shibata or Hook weren't anchored with this belt. Only Jericho could make this belt mean something. But I also think that it should be removed. It's a surplus to requirements belt. It's a luxury belt. Take it out. As for the build up to this one, this was pretty well built up. You had the looming threat of Brian Keith, who actually shows up at the end. and is one of the highlights of the match. This fulfills my minimum requirements for a three-way. Like, everyone should be involved. It shouldn't be broken down to 1v1s. But there was just a sort of disjointedness to what happens here. Like, we get moves spammed over and over again, especially Hook's T-bone. Dude just kept doing it. It's like he has nothing else. And then, like, he did maybe like 2 more than it was actually needed on the dice, which I thought was a good use of weapons. Now, this was badly structured. But yeah, like I said, I like the use of the weapons. The dice was a highlight, but they used it too much. I like that they threw it on Jericho. I like the use of the kendo sticks. There was no sitting in front of each other and hitting each other with kendo sticks. And yeah, I like the use of the tables, except for one. You have Shibata, a known concussion patient who almost died, was it 8 years ago? Yeah. And then you have him take this risky spot to deliver a Death Valley driver on Hook to Jericho on a table. And when that happens, table doesn't break, Shibata almost lands on his head. And we could have had another tragedy. Honestly, I hope Shibata's sort of fascination with hardcore matches is over, since it's just starting to feel repetitive and it doesn't suit him. And the way his spine bent on that DVD, oh my god. As for the top spots of the match, number 2 is the T-bone suplex to Big Bill outside. And number 1 is the Red Room figure 4 combination. The finish I'm not so hot on, since it was pretty dumb, because you have Brian Keith hitting just a simple senton on an armored Shibata inside a trash can. But then he gets taken out, and then Jericho Judas effects Hook, but then chooses to pin Shibata instead. Like, what the hell was going on here? Honestly, like, my view of Hook is so low. He should have been pinned. He should have gone on excursion. He has no place on Dynamite as of now. And after this one, my opinion doesn't change. It's a TV undercard pay-per-view opener. We have the right winner, but a bad match. So after that is Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita in an eliminator match for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So this was an awkward matchup, not in terms of the match. The match was fine, but the booking of it, since there was no chance that Konosuke would win. Like, no one would beat the IWGP champion, a world champion of another company, in another allied company's pay-per-view. New Japan's downfall has been a mixture of the pandemic, repetitive booking of Okada all of the time in the same position, as well as the halting of the Western expansion that I don't think would have ever fully worked, because you have American fans, man, watching Japanese wrestling. The philosophies are different. And then here you go with the world champion, Jon Moxley, who I think should not have won. I think they should have gone with someone else. I think they should have gone with, like, their current top stars, namely Tetsuya Naito and Shingo Takagi. Like, those are their best guys who are left. They can have more booking freedom with that, but they don't go for it. I hate it so much. Why do you put the title on a foreigner main guy of another promotion who's probably not going to be there all the time for New Japan? They could have signed a Katsuhiko Nakajima, a Kazusada Higuchi or something, or they could have used the talent they still have left. I would have definitely taken that over coming into Forbidden Door with basically an AEW world champion carrying the New Japan title. But I guess he can lose it there. Like, he has to lose it there. That's the final straw. Like, he has to lose it there. Maybe not in Dominion, but we'll see. And it doesn't have to be against Evil if, like, the fans don't want it. But enough of that. Now for the actual match. This was actually pretty good, despite the poor build. The build for this was alternating weeks. We didn't even get a lot of in-ring time between the two, or basically promo time. This had the worst build of the whole night, like for all of the matches. And why do you treat the IWGP Championship like that? Come on. It's like this was just booked to be there. But the talent of the two men in the ring, I think, carried this match. This was a hard-hitting, sell-heavy fight between these two. Mox sold that offense on his left arm consistently until the end. And Takeshita, on the other hand, unleashed DDT Takeshita with those hard strikes. At points, this was just a bit too slow for me. I know people like those selling dramatic matches, but I like faster, more action-packed matches like what Konosuke had with Higuchi in DDT. I think they kept Takeshita strong by not having Mox overpower him. Mox basically gets the win via like a sneaky tactic. He curb stomps Takeshita on like a chair that Takeshita brings in the ring. Behind the referee's back, we get the Death Rider for the win, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, spots of the match. Number 3 is that hard strike by Takeshita on a kneeling Moxley. 2 is the selling of the left arm. And number 1 is the finish. I like it. It keeps Takeshita strong, and it gives Jon Moxley the win. TV main event, pay-per-view undercard. I think they had a better match a couple of years ago. But honestly, even though this match was pretty good, I think this would have been better left off the card. Or if you really wanted to have this, the build should have been better. So after this is the Malachi Black versus Adam Copeland match. So I never really watched The Brood when I was younger. I wasn't old enough. I would just get glimpses of the Attitude Era on TV. And I'm like from another country, so the showings of it aren't really consistent. I was more of a Ruthless Aggression sort of kid. That's when I like tuned in every week. Those episodes were pretty much delayed for about a day or two. But there was no internet, so I couldn't really search for spoilers. But yeah, enough of that. I wasn't really like a fan of The Brood. I'm not crazy about it. I'm more invested in this story he has with the House of Black. And as I said in my weekly reviews, I think Cope should have lost this match. And based on what happens after Cope breaks his tibia after that spot that I'll talk about later, I think the right choice would have been to have Malachi win, honestly. Like, what's going to happen now with Cope? He's just going to stay home, not be TNT champion. He's going to have to, like, vacate that. Or he's going to be on a wheelchair leading the House of Blood. Yeah, this was a missed opportunity booking, and I think Malachi should have been made into a star by beating Cope right here. It would have brought Cope under the thumb of Malachi. You could have him in a wheelchair with Malachi pushing him around, or like Brody pushing him around, being this sort of like prisoner. And you can have Christian save him, eventually have them team up. But yeah, this was like maybe the worst missed opportunity booking decision ever. Or like at least for this show. I'm not into Cope being the leader of another spooky faction. But for this match, I think it was like one of the most dramatic sort of fight feel matches that we've had. You have those like pearl clutching fans who would say, "Oh, my non-existent child was crying during this match. He couldn't take it. Grow some fucking balls, you pussy." We literally had live sex celebrations in the Ruthless Aggression era. We had The Big Show chokeslam Kurt Angle down one floor and then have the back of his head be cracked open and then bleed. That was one of the most affecting images in my childhood, by the way. We have dudes getting buried alive. And we've had those late stage Cactus Jack matches. Yeah, you know, the one that Edge and Randy Orton won. And then you're opposed to this? Again, grow some balls, pussy. Go lift some reps in the gym or something. But yeah, this has been a running theme throughout this show. It's either the wrong people win, or the booking coming in could be bad, or both. But for this one, the build coming in was awesome. Coming out, it leaves no room for growth. So yeah, let's talk about the match itself. This was a very well structured, purposeful, I'm gonna say that a lot in this show, deliberate, and just like attempted murder by both of these guys. They were doing things to each other that I don't think two people, even enemies, should ever do to each other. They get cut early on and then proceed to cut each other even more. And then they sell the beatings pretty well. This was definitely the most brutal match of the night. Like, it was already good. Like, I didn't need to have that spot that we'll talk about next. Like, you had them, like, put each other through tables, wrapping each other in barbed wire, trapping them in said tables, and then jumping on them. Like, yeah, so let's get to that spot where that happened. That was like sick. Like the setup to that was sick, but I don't like that Cope injured himself on the dive. Like that was dumb. Yeah, you're like a veteran. You know the limits of your body. And I think it's not a very smart decision to land on your feet jumping from that high. He should have done a splash even if it was on barbed wire. I don't think barbed wire can penetrate through your skin, through your pectoralis muscles, and then to your lungs. I think he did way more damage to himself than he would to Malachi if he just did a splash. The dude landed on his legs, and it's a good thing that he only broke one of his tibias, which is the main lower leg bone, by the way. But you know what? Like a boss, he didn't even show it. He didn't even show the damage until the end of the match where he was like selling it for real, I think. I think he knew something was broken by the end of it. But before the end, he was running like there was nothing there. He was a boss. And now let's get to the top spots of the match. So yeah, honorable mention is the storytelling moment where Buddy and Brody looked to be teaming up with Cope, but then they back Malachi up like they should. Number 3 moment is this avalanche powerbomb with Cope being on the cage, like climbing the cage. Malachi just jumps behind him, powerbomb through a table. Number 2 spot, I think, is Cope getting kicked out of the cage. That was an awesome visual. Another honorable mention is if this didn't lead to the injury of Cope, this would have been like a part of the top 3, but the setup to the elbow drop that injured Cope. Dude wrapped Malachi on the table with barbed wire. That was so cool. But it led to the injury, so it doesn't make it to the top 3. And then number 1 is the finish, where Cope spears Malachi and then puts him in a crossface with like the barbed wire on Malachi's face. And again, yeah, I need to add one more honorable mention. It's the Crown of Thorns spot, of course. Oh yeah, and of course, honorable mention to Gangrel's appearance, where he goes up from under the ring, spits out blood at Buddy, and then proceeds to impaler DDT both of them. So I guess that's where Cope got the execution. It's from Gangrel. But yeah, I can't give this a score lower than... Like, even if Cope injured himself, I'm gonna give this match a score of... I'm torn between... Yeah, this is gonna get my second highest score. This is a semi-main. This was so good. This match was like brutal from start to finish, but I can't give it the max score because of that injury and how easily avoidable it was. This wasn't an accident. This was a poorly made decision that could have been avoided. So yeah, after this is a segment by the Don Callis family where Don's gonna offer a contract to Orange Cassidy. Or like he just mentions a contract for the Don Callis family, and that's pretty weird since who else would you give it to? Like Orange literally beat Trent twice. It would be dumb to give it to Trent. Like that would make no sense at all. My prediction is that Orange is gonna reject, and then Callis is gonna settle with Trent, which will make Trent look bad. But yeah, it's a bit of a start and stop with this faction. I would have appreciated it more if they became like the top heel faction before like the Bucks became one. Now it's a bit too late. Everyone's injured. We'll see what happens. So after that is Willow versus Mercedes. The most well-built feud coming in with the best promos. Maybe the beatdowns are like second to the world title. Christian went overboard with that. But the build for this was perfect. Stretching from like whenever Mercedes had her match when she was injured against Willow, up to now, to the teasing of the breakups, this was built like a main event, and the title they're fighting for is the TBS title, which meant nothing. Which meant nothing when Jade held it. Her matches were always bathroom breaks. People just like her because of her physique. But the actual wrestling was so bad. Mainstream appeal my ass. The woman couldn't even cut a promo half as good as Willow can. A promo as good as Mercedes, you can discuss it. But Willow was amazing during this build. She fully unleashed her promo skills, and she got the whole crowd behind her. As for the match itself, oh my god, this was so good. There was one moment with a lag at the start, but it all came together after that. These two did what I keep saying from the start of this review. They each have something they're good at, and they do it really well. And they can't really compete with the other person if they fight them with that style. Man, and then the crowd was so loud for this. We had dueling chants. This felt like black and gold NXT. And yeah, I have to admit that I was a fan back then of that. That was so good. That was the shining light that we had when the main roster was run by Vince McMahon. But at that point, I was tuned out from the main roster. I just watched NXT New Japan, and that's it. Mercedes has not lost a step from what she was back then, like about 10 years ago. That was so long. They were very purposeful in their moves. Willow was the power wrestler. Mercedes worked on Willow's left knee, which was not sold as consistently as Mox did, his arm. But Mox came with the injury. Willow didn't. I guess you could shake it off with adrenaline. But yeah, this is everything I want from a match. Big moves of escalating devastation as the match went on. Plus the added element of like a David versus a Goliath, where Goliath is the face and Willow just threw Mercedes around like she was nothing. And Mercedes has to like stick to Willow, damage the limbs before she can do her damage. The top spots of the match, number 3, the Dr. Bomb on the apron. Number 2 spot of the match is the Dr. Bomb in the ring, leading to that visual pin where Stat and Stoke distracted the ref. And oh yeah, the interferences here were at a minimum and were limited to just distractions. This is how you do it. This is how AEW should do it all the time. It should not be a handicap match, especially when there's a DQ or when like the opponent heel wrestler is fully capable of fighting the match himself, just like with Roddy Strong. Honorable mention is the swinging cloverleaf. This would have been higher up if it became a big swing but a cloverleaf. And another honorable mention is the knee breaker on the apron. And number 1 spot is the finish with Mercedes using momentum to get Willow on the money maker because she can't carry Willow by herself. She does it by setting her up on the turnbuckle and then gets it off. Great match, pay-per-view main event. And if it wasn't for the Anarchy in the Arena, this would have been the best match of the night. I can't believe it. 2 women's matches are the top matches of this show, of an AEW show. How is that possible? As for that heel turn, I mean, it's alright. It gets Willow to do something. It gets Chris to do something. They're good wrestlers. They're going to wrestle. Really good matches. But the final destination for Willow should be to move up to the women's title. Like Mercedes can do whatever she wants. She can wrestle with the lower card talent, but Willow has to go up. So yeah, now we have 2 singles non-title feuds between the women. And I hope Mercedes just doesn't face the outcasts and stuff. I hope she faces actual talent. So yeah, after that is Swerve Strickland versus Christian Cage. So this Warriors entrance that Swerve does is a bit out of nowhere. They're not in New York. It's like Swerve just watched the Warriors last night and then said, "Oh, I like this movie," or maybe he played the game, "I like this game," and then they decide to do it. Maybe you should have held off on this until you got to New York or New Jersey. But I like it. It's pretty nostalgic. I like good movies and good games. As for the match itself, it was well built. I like the beatdowns, the promos. The build was so good, and I think it was better than the actual match. The match itself, I mean, the crowd was pretty burnt out from the last few. And I think the first half of this match should have been more eventful. Yeah, like the first half of this one was pretty much just an average sort of wrestling match. It had more of a fight feel to it. There was no limb work. It was evenly matched all the way. They were trying to knock each other out. But I just don't feel the amount of hate that the cage match sort of exuded. Honestly, this felt like a WWE match with all of the interferences. And it's not like bad, but for a main event, I think there should have been more like hate, animosity, and all that stuff here. But instead, they go like the bloodline route where most of the story of the match came from the interferences and the participation of Killswitch, Mama Wayne, and Baby Wayne. They were well done interferences, but you gotta base your match on more than just that. As for the top spots of the match, I am a super fan of that power slam that Swerve does. Honorable mention for that fireman carry converted into a power slam. Another honorable mention is the dive on the steps by Swerve. And then for the number 3 spot of the match is the Swerve stomp on the desk that doesn't break. Number 2 is the Swerve stomp on Christian's throat. And number 1 spot is the finish. But mostly that house call on Christian who's doing a spear. That was amazing. What a mark out moment for me. It was sort of like a curb stomp to the RKO moment. You just don't expect it. Like, it's kind of dangerous and is therefore really cool when done properly. So yeah, my rating for this match is going to be pretty controversial, but it's like pay-per-view undercard. If they did more, this would have gone higher, but it's good for what it is, and there's variety in AEW, so you can have WWE matches here as well. It is a decent first feud, second defense for Swerve, but I still think the Claudio match was better. Maybe you should have had him be like a feud and not just a one-off match. So yeah, now it's time for the main event. Glad for the service, Mark Henry, but it's time to move on. So yeah, for the Anarchy in the Arena, this has to be, like, if you compare to the other two. Honestly, I can't remember the second one that much, but from what I remember, compared to those two, this was maybe the most violent in like a vertical sort of way. Like, they went deep when it came to the spots that they did. They did some different stuff than they did back then with the other two. I think there was more varied spots here, even though it was a bit more organized. It wasn't really much of anarchy as we got in the first one, because in the first one, which I liked more than the second, everyone just like fought all over the place. They just came back to the ringside area for the finish. And yeah, for this one, it's a bit more purposeful and organized versus the rest. Like, that has been a running theme throughout this show. Like, after the initial fight throughout the place, you have 6 of the dudes come back to ringside area and then just fight, which I think is a better experience for the live crowd, better than watching through the Titantron most of the time. They had a fight in the back, and I guess that's okay. Like, checkbox checked. But everything else aside from that was clearly better and a lot more different than the second one was different from the first. Because the way the music worked here, as tradition in Anarchy of the Arena, they just don't stop it by breaking the machine or super kicking the lead singer. They fight over the music, final countdown wins. Darby dives off of the balcony to everyone below at the crescendo of the song. And then the song is stopped by Matt Jackson making one of the most elite jokes ever. It cost us $200,000 every play of that song. We're running on a budget. Stop it. So yeah, I like how they made up with that for the duration of the song being played. Like, that's so much better and gets so less tiring than having one song play throughout the whole thing. Like, you can only listen to Wild Thing so much. So yeah, for that vertical sort of depth in the violence, we had the pair of Darby Allin and Jack Perry going outside the arena into this like setup sort of set that we have at the back. I love the attention to detail where Darby has to dip Jack in this like a cooler of water. I think it was just water here or there was alcohol, but yeah, in this ice bath. He did it in order to hide the fact that Jack was covered in flame retardant going back in. It made it make sense that he was wet. It's a sort of misdirect, but we all know that it was flame retardant. And then there, Darby was beaten. He was put in a stack, and then he was run over. Like, that stack, we don't actually see Darby getting run over because, of course, let's not kill one of the wrestlers. But I think he could have hidden it more by focusing more on the bus that's labeled scapegoat. And Jack just runs Darby over, allegedly. But I guess he did, since Darby sells the getting run over by the bus again as he makes his return. But yeah, the people in the arena who are left, like the 6 guys, all take bumps except maybe Okada. Okada took the least amount of bumps, or at least the least amount of deadly bumps. Like, I don't know about Okada, man. He should have like taken a bump on a chip or something. He just like elbow dropped someone on the table down below. It's fine, but Okada has to contribute his body's wellness as well. There were bumps on chips. There were table spots. Darby was lowered in that sort of elevator thing for the entrances. And this set up the spot of the night. What this thing was built out to do. The flamethrower spot. So Jack Perry takes Tony Khan from Gorilla. I think they could have done more here. He could have like assaulted Tony Khan again and just had Tony Khan laying on the ramp. I think that would have been better than having Tony run off. But yeah, he brings Tony Khan in the arena, and then Darby douses him in flame, or like at least his balls. I like to think that Darby was aiming for his dick. Poor Anna Jay. That's not going to be functional for like a month. And it was pretty well done. I like that he doesn't linger with the fire, and that the Bucks put him out. And of course, for the safety of the performers, he gets patted down. And then for the final phase of the match, we have the destruction of the baby faces. Everyone just gets taken out. Dax gets hit by an exploding chair. Cash gets rainmakered with a padded sleeve with thumbtacks. Darby gets hung upside down after taking a bit more deadly bumps, and then proceeds to get double super kicked with those ugly ass Reebok Pump Elite shoes with tacks on them, of course. And then Danielson is made to look strong, having another last stand, just like with the first one, almost beating Nick Jackson. But the numbers game triumphs at the end. He eats a Rainmaker, he eats an EVP trigger, and then as he's futilely trying to help Darby Allin down, like the crowd asked, he gets kneed to the face by Jack Perry for the win by the Elite. So yeah, no question about it. This was pay-per-view main event. And I think the best Anarchy of the Arena that they've done, even if it wasn't as Anarchy as the rest. So yeah, this was a great show. This would have been a better show if the FTW title did not exist. And yeah, that's pretty much it. A lot of the builds could have been better. The right people could have won 1 or 2 more times. But yeah, I enjoyed the show overall and it was worth the money. Like, the show for people in Western countries was worth so much more than it is here where I'm from. I think it's about $20 here. So yeah, they like squeezed all the value out of that. This was so worth it. It's worth the $50. But yeah, that's it for this review. Thank you for watching. Again, like, comment, subscribe, but who cares? See you in the Dynamite review as well as the women's roster tier ranking for AEW. Bye bye.